Welcome to Off Book. I'm Katie.
And I'm Elise.
And today we're talking with author Georgia Clark. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Lovely to have you. Do you just want to give us a little bit of an intro and maybe talk about your books a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Georgia Clark. I am an Aussie living in New York City. I am the author of 8 novels, most of those romantic comedies. My new book, Play It Again, is coming out June 16th. It is an ensemble rom-com set in the world of community theater in a fictional upstate town called Rhodes in upstate New York. And it is a love letter to queer kissing, community theater, second chance romance, and a lot of other things I love. I am also the founder and host of a storytelling series founded right here in New York City in 2017 called Generation Women, where every month we invite a woman or non-binary performer in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s plus to tell an original story on a theme. We have a monthly residency at Joe's Pub, which is part of the Public Theater here in New York City, as well as sister shows in Washington, D.C., New Jersey, Toronto, Sydney, and Melbourne. So if you're in any of those places and you want to catch one of our live shows, come and see us for a night of intergenerational storytelling. I also work as a book coach and developmental editor. I have 2 year-long novel writing mentorships called My Novel Year, 2 tracks, one called The Draft, one called The Revision. The draft for writing the first draft of a book, the revision for working through a revision. They're high-touch, small cohorts, which you work with me one-on-one over the course of the year. You get a full developmental edit from me, and both tracks end in the chance to pitch an agent and editor. So for all of your listeners who don't just love reading but want to be published novelists themselves, they can find out more information at georgiaclark.com.
Amazing.
That's so awesome. And that's where I first learned of you. I've been hearing about Georgia Clark for a while because our friend Dina did one of your intensives. And I remember she was telling me all about the writing retreat that she was going on and how she was going to learn so much. And then that was, I think, just the start of your guys' friendship.
Beautiful friendship. Yes. Yeah. Dina came to we host 3 writers' retreats a year through Generation Women, but open to any female or non-binary writers in Catskill, New York, usually over the cold season, like November, January, March. And they're a great way to spend a weekend away working on your writing and a chance to become my friend, which is what happened with Dina and I.
I love that.
Yeah. Actually, Katie, you've been to one Generation Women show with me. I've been to both of the ones that Dina were at. But
Nice.
So I went to one a few years ago, obviously for our friend Dina. She was talking through an original story. And
it was her birth story.
It was her birth story.
And that was one of those things she came to me to. She's like, what should I do? And I'm like, you should do your birth story because it's hilarious.
Dina's birth story it's such a standout. And we make space for all kinds of stories. There's really funny stories, more emotional stories, always uplifting, and leaving you feeling like you can take on aging and this crazy world. And I particularly loved in that story all of the fantasies that she had about bringing a child into the world, like in this really beautiful, holistic, calm way. And anyone who's been around anyone giving birth or given birth yourself know it's a total shit show. And it is, I have been in the room for both of the births of my children and what amazing, wonderful experiences. But I'm not sure if I would describe them as dreamy, soft focus moments.
Yeah. I don't think so. I will also say in both of the Generation Women shows I've been to, the women who were presenting in the 60s and the 70s category, I found the most inspiring both times. Everybody was doing a great job, and then there was just some sort of je ne sais quoi when we were getting older that I'm just like, this is it. This is important.
Yeah, you were certainly not the first person to say that. We start with Team 20s and we end with Team 70s plus. So the show is structured in an age chronological way. And I think what happens is you see how each of the generations are responding to the theme and how the stakes just naturally start to rise as you get older. Because for most people in their 20s, some of the biggest moments of their life or the biggest things they're grappling with are maybe like their first big breakup or moving to New York or kind of like career anxiety. And then by the time you're getting into, 60s and 70s, people have gotten divorced, people have died, like career pivots 3 or 4 times over. Like just life has gotten bigger, richer, more difficult, more challenging, and you've overcome even more. And I really love stories that really showcase women's determination and grit and ability to hit rock bottom and move back up, or decide in the middle of a successful career, I don't like this, I'm going to do something different and just start again. And those kinds of stories are so inspiring. And also, we just don't live in a culture where we often see older women, particularly 70s plus, 70s and 80s, headlining, celebrated. We're the kind of room where when I announce the final performer, like representing Team 70s or Team 80s, and our community always just goes nuts for these women. And they shine on stage and they are powerful and revered and listened to, as I believe all older women should be. So it's a very satisfying project to create the future that I want to live in, to create the culture that I want to live in as a woman who will become an older woman, hopefully. So I think that seeing the headliners in their most sort of glorious stage is always what we're trying to deliver for you.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I will say I've finished Play It again because I know that you were gracious enough to send us an arc. I was hogging the arc, so Katie hasn't gotten a chance to read it yet, but I loved it. We were just talking with a guest that we had on Wednesday how second chance romances have become like one of my new favorite tropes when I'm reading romance. I feel like I really grew into it. I loved that we were following 2 relationships throughout of it. And these people are in the same place at the same time. They had similar backgrounds, but the issues they were dealing with were different.
Yeah. Yeah. So for Katie and for everyone who hasn't read the book, just the quick overview is the book is about a group of 4 people who as teenagers were in a community theatre production of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by the English playwright Tom Stoppard in their high school years in a community theatre production. Which was an iconic production for the theatre and also for them. It cemented the friendship of this quartet, and there were 2 relationships that formed between each of the 2 couples until closing night, when a chaotic closing night party that blew the 4 of them apart. They scattered to their various corners and haven't spoken since. Until now, the book starts when the theatre's director calls on them to return to Rhodes, to revive the play, to save the theatre, and by extension, the town. They are now all in their mid-30s. One has become an actress professionally. The other 3 are not in the performing arts at all. And they, in many ways, their lives have not turned out how they planned. And they return to do their sort of old mentor and the town and this theatre that meant so much to them, a solid. They have all of their own reasons for coming back, but it reinvigorates and reignites these 2 relationships that had, for the reasons that you sort of find out in the book, had ended. And I agree. Second chance romance is really interesting, especially when you have a significant amount of time passing. Who have you become? I always love those stories of people like reconnecting with their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever on Facebook from high school or from middle school. And because I think there is so much about the connection to someone's essence as opposed to some of the things we might think attract us to our partners, like our looks, our professions, or, those sort of things. And that in a story like this, it's really interesting to see why the couples fell apart when they were teenagers, what still remains between them, who they are now, what they have to kind of get past and grow past in order to fall in love again.
And I think as we get older, second chance romance is, you can really imagine it. You can
Hmm.
really, kind of see how that would play out for you. When you're younger, I feel like you're just like, I'm never talking to that person again. Like, I don't want anything to do with them. And now I'm like, there's a couple people I could reconnect with.
Oh, do tell.
I know, right? It's like, okay,
Who
Katie.
are
I
you
was
talking
actually,
about?
I know. And as we were talking about this, so we have a cousin,
Mhm.
and when we were really little, his sister was getting married, and his girlfriend at the time, they were probably in high school. We loved her. We were like, she was the most beautiful, fun, awesome girl. And we spent this wedding. I was just like obsessed with her. I was like, I only want to hang out with Carrie. And anyway, so they had broken up. Both of them have gotten married, but then they got divorced and found each other on Facebook. And now they're married. They've been married for like the last 10 years.
Yeah.
They found each other again.
Love it.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's my point exactly.
Love it.
I can't wait for everybody to read it. So June
16th.
16th.
Mhm.
Yeah. What made you use Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead as sort of the play within a play? Was that that's something
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with it. I did some little research after I was done, but what was that choice?
It's a play that was first came out in 1966 and was played at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And it is a play that I discovered in my early 20s. And I did community theater growing up as a teenager, and then I did a production at university. I went on as well in my when I moved to New York. I wrote a play with my then roommate that was on the New York Fringe Festival. So I really enjoy community theater. The play is set within the play Hamlet, which everyone is familiar with.
Yes.
Shakespeare, heard of him? And it takes two of the minor characters from Hamlet, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who, even if you're a Hamlet fan, you might be like, who are they? They're like minor messengers in the play, and it puts them as the central characters in this play, and it's an absurdist satire that is about these two characters who are trying to sort of like figure out their role in the world, and the action of Hamlet is kind of happening like off page and sort of around them. It's full of a lot of banter, wordplay. It's very clever. Tom Stoppard was sort of known for his linguistic sort of circus-like ability with words, and it's an example of existentialist theater. It's always calling attention to itself. And when we were discussing the idea of the book with my editors, I sort of said, do you have any like parameters around the play and what play they're
Yeah.
putting on? And they were like, no, that's up to you, whatever play it is. And I was like, oh, great. Then I'm just going to use a play that I really like, that I want to have an excuse to revisit. And I felt like I wanted to not do a musical, because to be a musical theater fan really means something, and
Yeah.
that you have to be a capital F fan to kind of be in that world. And I just thought, I can't fake it. I'm more of a fan of like straight plays without music. I like musical theater well enough, but I thought it would be more in my wheelhouse to do straight theater. And also music is notoriously hard to get on the page, because you're
Yeah.
just like writing the lyrics down, and you can't even get like copyright for them anyway. And so it's just sort of hard to make it happen on the page. But I wanted to have a play that had a somewhat limited cast, because the challenge of ensemble is always with readers keeping in track the amount of characters
Yeah.
on in the book. So this had a sort of a reduced enough cast that I could get away with it, and that there would be like, I wanted to have quirky locals in the production, as well as our four, gorgeous 30 somethings, and so there's sort of roles for them. And I decided to make it a gender swapped production. The play in its original form is typically played by all men, So, with a couple of female roles. So I thought, oh, let's gender swap it. Then there's a reason why this can be like a female
Yeah.
focused. And
Mhm.
within the four, we have four women and one non binary character. So it sort of gave me that space as well. And then there's like sort of ways in which the themes of the plays or certain lines can reflect what's going on with the characters and all of that side of things as well.
Ah,
I
I
know.
love it.
Love it. Ah,
I
all
can't
right.
wait.
I know.
Yep.
I know. You can I'm done now. You can
Okay.
have the
Thank
honor.
you.
I'm sorry. That was on me. All right, you want to jump into the questions?
All right.
Cool.
Let's go. All right, Georgia, we'll start off easy. What is your favorite genre?
Well, the genre I'm out here ripping today is, of course, contemporary romance. So
Love it.
I'm a contemporary romance author, and that is what I read for fun, and I write, and I know so many writers. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
Love it. And what do you think was a book or a moment that made you kind of choose, like, this is what I want to read, this is what I want to write?
Yeah, I can pinpoint that exactly, actually. So early on in my career, I wrote two young adult novels. Then I wrote two women's fiction novels, The Regulars and The Bucket List. Then I sold the book that went on to become It Had to Be You off a proposal. And when I sold it, it was more of a dark comedy. And I sold it off the first 25,000 words and a proposal to my editor, my then editor, Emily Besser at Simon& Schuster. And I was having drinks with my agent, Alison Hunter, afterwards, and I could tell she didn't love the submission. And I said, just give it to me straight. Like, do
Yeah.
you think this book is going to work? And she
Yeah.
said, no. And she said, it's the main character at the time she's like, we would call her like a spiky character, like someone who is unlikable, prickly. And she's like, and that we're finding right now, like that is hard to make work. You can make it work in certain genres, mystery thriller specifically. There's like many examples of unlikable like protagonists where there
Yeah.
is a real like disconnect between an intentional disconnect between the way the character is presenting themselves and the reader has on them. But in the genre that I was working in, Alison was like, I just think this is going to be hard to make work and that readers won't warm to her.
Mhm.
And that, up at the time, it was right before the big romance boom, which was sort of in the late 2010s. And right then, Uplit was what everyone was talking about, like uplifting literature.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And she's like, I think you should sort of like read some of that, like think about that, like look at romance, and I was like, romance? Like, oh, okay. I mean, I love watching rom-coms. I've always watched rom-coms my whole life, but I didn't read the genre at that
Oh,
yeah.
time.
Mhm.
And the book that had just come out was, and I think I read it in ARC, was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And it
Yes.
was like, it was a big book. It was already really
Mhm.
buzzy. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll read this romance book. And I just fell hook, line, and sinker for that book, for Casey, for the writing. And it really was a big, like, mind blown moment of, oh, like this
This
is what romance can be.
Mhm.
If you're not familiar, Red, White, and Royal Blue is a queer romance, very much a rom-com, very funny on the line level, about Alex Claremont Diaz, who is the son of America's first female president, and Prince Henry of Wales, who get caught in a fake feuding moment at a royal wedding and then are forced into like a fake friendship and then they fall in love. And it is really quippy, very voicey, very romantic. It really it really takes on this larger project of exploring queer love through history. It's like unashamedly a long read. It is like a fat book,
Love it.
and it was made into a very successful rom-com of the same name. And that book really, after reading it, I was like, I'm going to write a romance. And so It Had to Be You became a multi POV rom-com with about 5 couples. So I was like, I went in hard with like with like 5 couples in one book, all revolving around the inner workings of a wedding planning business and 2 mismatched people who worked for the business at the center of it. And I'm so glad I did. That was my most successful book, and it kind of kicked off my era of writing romance.
Oh my gosh, I love that just a conversation changed the trajectory of what you were writing. Like
Yeah,
that's
and really, like, I do think it's also a lesson in for writers specifically, listen to your agent and don't be afraid to, because at that time we had already sold the book off the proposal. So after I had this like honest, very honest conversation, I could have just said, okay, thanks for that. I'm just going to stick on with what I've done. Like, but I knew in my gut that she was right. And that I think often happens in the writing world. And whether it's a developmental edit letter that is laying out a big revision that you could do, or something like this where it's an optional total shift and rewrite and start again moment. But you know, if really the person suggesting it to you is right, even if it involves a lot of work. And I'm really glad that I did the work and made that change and had that conversation.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's. I feel like we had a similar conversation with Nick DiDemizio. We had him on after his last book was published, A Murder Most Camp, and he said something similar.
Yeah.
He was like, I was talking to, and not even his agent at the time, but an editor that was sent his way, and they're like, we really want, like, we know you can do thrillers, we know you can do comedy. We want you to do like a rom-com cozy mystery. And he's like,
what?
He's like, what? Like, what? Like, I mean, okay. It's been one of our favorite books of the year, A Murder Most Camp. And it really just came out of a conversation with an editor. And then having to go back and sort of like do the research. You know what I mean? Can I do it? Why is this something that someone is interested in right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Great. So interesting.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So if somebody is not a fan of contemporary romance, is there a book that you would point them to first to get them into the genre?
Oh boy, there are so many. And so many, even within contemporary romance, there's a lot of like little subgenres. There's a lot of tropes that, you know, pick your favorite. I think the book that I would give, the gateway drug that I would inject straight into someone's veins, would be The Idea of You by Robin Lee. This is a book that also became a film, and I loved both of them. It was published in 2017, but it became a breakout during the pandemic. So it had a very small release and then had this sort of fairy tale moment over the pandemic. And the story is about a 39-year-old divorced LA gallery owner, Solène Marchand, who takes her daughter to Coachella for a meet and greet with a boy band. And this is sort of how the film works. It's slightly different in the book, but yada, yada, yada. She meets this boy band lead singer. The boy band is called August Moon, and meets their 20. In the book, he's a little younger. I think he's like 21. In the film, they sort of age him up to 24, Hayes Campbell. So it is an age gap romance between an older woman and a younger man. And the book has a bit more of a glossier, more uplifting take on the story, and famously has a different ending. The book is a little darker and more mature, and plays out the relationship over years. Like, they are together and sort of like secretive and then public for a very long time. The pitch makes it sound very not silly, but kind of juicy, very juicy. But the actual execution of the story is like, these are grown-ups who are figuring out this relationship, and they become very fully fleshed people. It's an interesting book for me to want to recommend, because the ending of the book breaks a big rule in romance. I hate the ending, and I've read the book a few times, and it just breaks my heart every time. But everything other than that, it really does feel like addictive to me. Like, I know there are Facebook communities that exist for people after they finish the book to go to, like, I know a friend of mine, like, read it the pandemic and then, like, joined this support group, like, over the book because it is impactful. It's very sexy. It's not a rom-com. It's not funny. It's a romance. I've read it many times. I've watched the film even more times, and it really does feel like it's my crack, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like, and talk about a dream, just being a 39-year-old woman and going to Coachella or some sort of concert and falling in love with one of the singers. Maybe that's just my dream.
Yeah. Maybe you're just saying a little bit about yourself there. Okay?
It hits a little close to home.
I know, but it's so true that famously the movie changes the ending.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember when I watched the movie, I was like, honestly, a good choice.
Yeah.
But I can see where the purists are like, the fact that it breaks genre is also so interesting. Like the book, that it's not like giving you what a classic romance will. And I think it sort of hooks people in just a different way. But I liked that the Netflix was a little bit more.
Yeah, it kind of gave the fans what they wanted and delivered on the genre conventions. I teach writing, and so I talk a lot about genre conventions, reader expectations, and the sort of the romance more than maybe any other genre, with the exception of some like thriller mystery, has very set in stone genre conventions that readers are showing up for, and they want to see them played out in a way that feels familiar but fresh and like surprising but inevitable. It's very difficult to do that. And one of those conventions, of course, is the ending, the happily ever after ending. But it's interesting how have as many like conventions and typical like structural frameworks there are, how breakout books will turn those on their head and sort of defy expectations and still be successful. I feel like in many ways Red, Riding, Royal Blue did that. Some in the length of it, like at the time romance wasn't running as long as that book was, and it was just more ambitious and bigger. It's also a book that sort of takes place over a longer period of time, and Casey wrote it on the day after Trump was elected in 2016 as a fantasy of what if a woman had won, what if a Democrat had won. And so I always love hearing those kinds of origin stories as well, and the ways in which they do or don't, follow convention. Idea of You is often said to be Harry Styles fanfic, but Robin Lee says it is not, even though that is the reading most commonly applied to it.
All right.
That's true. Yeah,
I think I'd heard that too. So that's just people, again, maybe Katie applying
what boy band you
would like to fall in love with.
If it was, I'd certainly pick One Direction and Harry Styles.
Of course. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And even if, Harry wasn't the inspiration for Hayes, you can cast him in the book and have a good time with that.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. 100%.
Do you have a book that you would give people who are already deep in the contemporary romance genre that maybe you wouldn't give to somebody who's new?
My cheeky answer to that is, if you haven't read a Tessa Bailey, girl, you're missing out. Tessa writes the most spicy end of contemporary romance, not tipping into erotica, which is like a different genre, but is right at the crossover point there. I think it's really fun to see what the genre is doing in that space. It Happened One Summer is my favorite of hers, which has like a Schitt's Creek kind of humor. I think it was pitched as a Schitt's Creek romance, as if Alexis is the kind of comp for the main character, Piper, who falls for like a hot fishing guy,
like a commercial fisherman.
Commercial fisherman. That's very fun for a spicy read. I also really loved, and will always be shouting from the rooftops about, 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, which is more of the literary romance lane, so kind of like the other side of the coin there. And it was a big book in 2021, and I think that it's the converted book for me, because It's about a single black mom, Eva Mercy, who secretly writes best-selling erotic vampire
My God, I love
novels,
that.
and Shane Hall, who is a literary novelist, and they reunite in Brooklyn, which is where I live, 15 years after a transformative 7 Days in June, as teenagers. And when people dismiss romance, this is what it it delivers everything that they
Yeah.
think that the genre doesn't have space for. It's about chronic illness, it's about addiction, it's about Black literary culture, motherhood, trauma, and it still is a romance. It still kind of delivers the all the beats we want out of a romance. It
Mhm.
like gives us the ending we want, and it is just such a smart book. It's such a clever book, and I think that for me, like, that's really showing us just how expansive this genre is.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes into my next question is what do you think the biggest misconception is about contemporary romance? Because there's a lot of, thoughts about it, but I love that you just already said there's a book you can recommend right now that kind of knocks all that misconception out of the water.
Yeah, if you read romance, you know how big the genre is,
Mhm.
how diverse it is, and there's many subgenres. I mean, I'm kind of talking about contemporary romance, but there's always
Mhm.
romantasy, there's historical
Yeah.
romance, there's all kinds of weird and wacky, from like very funny to much more serious. I think the biggest misconception is just that it's a silly genre,
Yeah.
and it's just about white women living in Manhattan who are working PR and can't cross the road without falling over or spilling coffee on
Oh my
themselves.
God,
And
yes. Yep.
they're privileged and ditzy and they're falling for a hunky trader or something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and that definitely is like the tone and the feel of like the romance we maybe remember from like the 90s. But the genre, I mean, that was it's decades ago now. And
Mhm.
the genre has really evolved since then, and isn't just making space for entertaining stories about romance and emotion and human relationships, but there really is so much room to be talking about. And I think romance fans are really willing to engage with books that have bigger ideas. I just was flipping through Big Fan, the first 831 stories, like
Yeah.
novel, which is about there's like a big argument for a basic universal income in that
Mhm.
book. And in 7 Days, there's so many sort of like health things that we're talking about
Mhm.
in my own books. Like there's a lot of in Island Time, which is a book my pandemic book that I wrote
Mhm.
over lockdown. It is about Australia and Indigenous Australians and about land rights. I mean, I had such a good time engaging with some bigger ideas there. And the fact that romance is the highest grossing
Mhm.
fiction genre in publishing by a huge
Oh
margin
yeah.
is, I
Yeah.
think, something that does surprise people to learn, because it actually like powers the industry and pays for the serious literary
Yep.
fiction that critics prefer. There's definitely like a gendered read here as well, that, you know, any kind of culture or really anything that is like largely created by and for women is historically dismissed as being silly,
Yeah.
in a way that things that men do is not and held as being important.
Mhm.
And so I think it's always good to check yourself there as well. If like if you're writing something off of like, well, who is this bind for? And like, how does that affect, how has that historically affected how things are seen? Because romance, isn't silly.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful genre. It gives people a lot of pleasure, deep emotion. And I think that like ultimately what romance is about is how we form relationships with other people. And the reason why the lovers can't be apart in the book is their own trauma, like
Mhm.
their own baggage, and which we all have. Like we've all been hurt by someone. We've all internalized that to some degree and created self-limiting beliefs about ourselves, whether that's to do with romance or otherwise. And romance is all about undoing those self-limiting beliefs to allow people to live the life they want to live, which I think is honestly something that every human being can
Yeah. Yeah.
benefit from.
Yeah.
I've been reading romance forever since I've been a small child. And you learn so much just from the worlds that the characters are put in. So sometimes it can just be that I've learned the difference between like what bourbon and whiskey is. So I mean, sure, not something I knew before, but we're at a bourbon distillery during this book. Or in your book, Rosen and Guildenstein, I was like, well, now I have to know what this play is. Like I didn't know what it was before. Or
sports.
Sports. Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, I'm not a sports gal. So, but I have read a hockey romance or two, and so I have some sort of basic understanding of it. And it can go deeper, to your point. Like you can be really seeing like different socioeconomic classes, like the different ways that they live and the different trials that they have to go through day to day. I really do think it opens up the world more than people think it does, you know? And that's always been something I've really tried to advocate when getting people to read romance, like my sister Katie over here.
Yeah, because it's, it's not typically a genre that I read. And it's just because, listen, I love Hallmark, just like fluffy Hallmark movies, which Elise has now told me before this podcast that that's essentially what a romance book is. You love to watch it because it makes you feel good. There's going to be a happy ending. Then I was like, oh, I guess I didn't realize that. I think I just like my romance with a little higher stakes.
Yeah. The Hallmark is the most stereotypical type of romance, but the beats are the same, right? Like we're talking about the same conventions throughout it, but I think a lot of the times why people like and why you love Hallmark so much is that it is, a comfort read, for like a comfort read, a comfort watch. And that's a lot of the reasons why people go to romance, right? They know the beats and the conventions, and that is something that they're looking for. I think, what did you say before? I think you put it perfectly. It was expected, but also
surprising but inevitable.
Yes, surprising but inevitable. That's what people are going to the genre for. But within that, there's so many ways that you can do it, and sometimes I think is much deeper than people give it credit for.
For sure.
Yes, I agree. And I think that there's certainly like many cozy romances which map onto like a Hallmark experience, as far as like this similarity sort of in terms of it being very easy and fun and sweet. But there's also like, I think that the trend in romance is towards more sophistication. Like when we think about Emily Henry, the most popular romance writer in the genre right now, her books are just more the humor, the structure, the ideas that she's sort of grappling with in a way that feels very fun and very, full of banter, and sort of big emotion, all the things that are really working in romance. There was an adaptation of Emily's You and Me on Vacation, which that is very different to like what we think of when we think of like a Hallmark movie. Just more like character development, settings that you just feel like you're inside of, and we're jet setting around the world. And I think that Emily Henry is definitely a gateway drug for any reader. If you're curious, an M Hen is a great way in.
Yeah. Definitely made Katie read a couple. So we did a Great Big Beautiful Life for the podcast. So that was, I think, your first Emily Henry.
But it made me, I did not know anything about the genre. And from that, I was able to understand like, tropes like grumpy sunshine, just, things I wasn't used to in some of the other books that I was reading.
Or things that you liked. You just didn't know they came from romance. That's another thing that I always tell, like particularly romantasy readers, which I love as well. Katie loves. And I'm like, well, they call it romantasy because it's a romance, right? That's what it is. It's just there's dragons there too.
Yeah.
So, all right. Do you have a comfort zone in the genre, like a favorite trope or vibe or moment that you always love to see or like gravitate towards a little bit more?
There's so many that I like. When it's done well, enemies to lovers is very fun. I think it's tricky to do well, but when it is done well, it's extremely sexy and fun. I love the first kisses, especially banter. I love that kind of finally moment where the lovers sort of give in to or admit to or cross a line. That we've been kind of like working towards building it up. I really enjoy that. I love I love banter. Like, clever dialogue is my crack, and so I really enjoy that kind of back and forth when it's feels really effortless and is revealing character and all the things that we want to try to do. There's so many aspects of a romance. Like, I think often it's just this feeling that the writer has created through the tone, the pacing, the characters, the world, the tropes, and it's like Red, White, and Royal Blue has that feeling for me. The Idea of You has that feeling for me, and they're really different kinds of books. Like, one's very zippy and frothy and fun and kind of like a bit like over the top, and one's like way more serious and but like being able to sink into those worlds and sink into a real relationship unfolding on the page with all of the angst and longing and desire, powering it at the heart of it. That's what I love.
We say when something makes you kick your little feet, like that's the moment, that's the feeling that at least I always want to hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah. Kick your little feet.
Kick
I
your
love
little
that.
feet. It's like I'm just kicking my little feet over here.
I'm gonna keep thinking about that.
Yeah.
My little feet.
Yeah. We're constantly looking just for things that make us kick our little feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like this.
What do you think that says about you as a person?
Oh, well, I love first kisses. I had a lot of them before I met my wife. I love a dramatic first kiss moment. I love love, and I'm like all romance writers, I'm sure very emotional and a deep feeler. I love the feeling of flirtatious behavior, a I don't know what it says about me as a person. I suppose I think it just means I am a lover, not a fighter, and I really enjoy. I love I love people. I love meeting people and hearing their stories, and I love hearing their love stories. When I was before I met my wife, and I was dating a lot. I don't know if you guys have ever done online dating, but you will often
we're familiar.
Right. Yes. Well, you would be familiar with the experience of like you're sitting down, you meet up with someone, and in the first 5 seconds, you're like, okay, you're not for me, but like,
I don't want to be here.
We're going to get through a drink together. And when I'm with dating women, I would be like, tell me your coming out story. Like, because then at least like that story to me is always interesting. And like early, like who helped you realize, I'm gay as Christmas over here, and like so like hearing those stories would always I just had got through so many dates, like would come away and think, oh, it was a really interesting conversation. I think what's really fun about romance, and it always works in any story, is like seeing someone become undone by someone else. And especially if they are more buttoned up type A, like it's even more fun then to see them get flustered, and I think that will always be great scene or scenes in any story, because it's just delightful to see someone who like otherwise has their life together to get tongue tied, to get second guessing. I just love seeing someone get knocked off their perch in that way. It's very charming.
That makes you kick your little feet.
It does make
me kick my little feet.
All right. Are we ready for the last question?
I think so.
Oh.
Okay. If you could read one genre for the rest of your life, would it be contemporary romance? Would you cheat with something?
I would cheat. I'm a pretty wide reader, so I don't know if I could read one genre, any genre, just for the rest of my life. I enjoy, actually recently I've been reading a lot of memoir. I just realized the last 3 books I read were all memoir. Famesick by Lena Dunham.
I just read that as well.
I loved it. I could not stop listening to it. I did the audiobook, and Lena performs it. And I just was obsessed with it. I wrote in my newsletter, it's like a nostalgia bomb for the 2010s. So like suddenly I'm back to being in my 20s and watching Girls. It's a feminist critique, and very insightful as to, her experience as a woman doing this. It's quite a harrowing medical tale.
Yes.
Like,
you said that.
I told Katie, and I'm just like, her uterus was attached to her spine and no one was listening to her. Like, it's unbelievable.
It's really shocking, like that element of it. it's also a juicy celebrity tell-all. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, she does deliver, like, the tea is spilled, you know?
Mhm.
So all of those things are happening at once. I wrote that in my newsletter, and then my editor was like, "Oh, I sent it to Lena's editor." So I loved what you wrote, and he loved what you wrote too. And I'm like, "Oh my God, Andy
Good.
Ward read my freaking
Yeah.
newsletter." And I'm like, I would have written more about it if I knew that
Yeah.
she was going to go and send it to him, because he's an amazing editor, did a wonderful job with that memoir.
Yeah.
So I really loved that. I love Strangers by Bill Burden.
Oh, I just read that.
The buzz book of the beginning of the year.
I know.
Yeah.
Just giving that to everyone I know and telling everyone to stitch up your financial accounts if you're
Oh my
married to a rich man.
Same. Like, I was like, this is almost a blueprint of if you're getting married, here's a couple things you need to make sure are in order, just because you don't know what's going to happen 20 years later.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really a cautionary tale, and I loved how honest she was. I just felt
Yeah.
like I was right there in the room with her and really riding through this unbelievable experience
I
of
know.
having your husband and father of your 3 children just turn around and be like, "I'm done. Goodbye."
Yeah.
Yeah, that memo was amazing. And then I actually the book I am a few pages away from finishing, Yesteryear by Cara Clark, but I saw it in your background.
Yeah.
Claire Burke. I'd seen it everywhere. I didn't know
Yeah.
too much about it apart from the log line, and just like down in one one fell swoop. That one was pretty easy to
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
to fall into, and really ambitious and clever and about many things, and a real mind twister as well. So I've been a reader my whole life. I think that is true actually of all the novelists I know, and I know many of them. Even if we have different personalities and we write different things, and we all came into the business differently, the one thing I always see consistently is we were big readers as children. And I
Yeah.
think that trains your brain to be able to do the kinds of like long form writing that the genre requires. You also have to do a lot of reading.
Yeah.
So I read a lot as a kid, and will always enjoy returning to, I mean, thriller, mystery, general fiction, women's fiction, prescriptive nonfiction, just anything good, I will read.
Yeah.
You know, going a little bit off track, but what was your favorite book as a child? Like, if you can think of like your first book that you read that
Yeah.
you were like, well, this is it for me.
I read a series. It was an English series called The Dark is Rising by Susan
Oh.
Cooper. It was 5 books, and it is a big fantasy series. It sort of starts in the real world and then goes off into all of this world building. And I grew up in Hornsby Heights, a sort of a suburb of the Sydney suburbs, like an hour from Sydney, on the edge of the bush. And in my bedroom, I would enter into this other world through
Yeah.
these books. I have a distinct memory of being swept away
Yeah.
by this wonderful fantasy, and like the visceral hunger I had in seeking that sensation out. I read The Hobbit, which I also really loved, like One Ring to Rule Them All, like big sweeping sort of those kinds of books. I think were my most like powerful memories of being a reader as a young person.
I was actually talking about this last night. As a kid, fantasy, magical realism, anything that was making me use my imagination, those are the books that I remember from being a kid. And it's
Yeah.
like, how can I go to this magical school? Or how can I all of a sudden get wings and fly? I always think of Maximum Ride by James Patterson, which is about a bunch of kids that have wings for some reason that I'm forgetting right now. But
They were experiments. They were science experiments. Yes.
Yep.
Just about
like,
those
yeah.
books as well, where I feel like they really respect children as
Yeah.
readers. When I think about the Darkest Rising series, it's quite complex world building, like quite sort of dark, but not grim or gruesome or frightening. And I think that I really like that idea of sort of assuming like children, they don't lack ages, they're not dumb.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
smart, and they have big imaginations, and it's a responsibility obviously to write young adult fiction to sort of keep a certain level of like violence and fear out of the experience. But you're so right in that the power of how much can we show them this world can be so much bigger than what we see in front of us. I've never really drawn the through line of reading those books and then being someone who like moved halfway around the planet and, you know, moved to a city where I knew no one. But like, I wonder if there is something to that, like the confidence that those kinds of books can give you in growing your own metaphorical wings, you know?
Yeah.
I read a lot of the fantasy and magic books when I was younger too. To me, your life started once you left home. So whether or not you went to a magical boarding school or you walked through a wardrobe and ended up in Narnia, like there was always something about going somewhere and leaving. And my mom will always remind me that I was like constantly asking to go to boarding school. Like I would look online and find schools I could go to with a scholarship. And she's like, why are you trying to leave me? And I'm like, it's not you, but how am I supposed to get to Narnia? There's not a single wardrobe in this house. Like how am I supposed to do these
I've looked
big
in
things?
every wardrobe and there's Mr. Tumnus is nowhere to be seen.
Like how am I supposed to be who I'm supposed to be if I can't get to a magical world? And I do think that's a lot of reasons why I've also been all over until I sort of landed back in New York City.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big part of that for me.
All right.
I think that's it. I think first of all, I would like to thank you for joining us. This was so great.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. What a pleasure to talk about books with two smart readers.
Do you want to give everybody just a little PSA on where they can find you, where they can find any of your books?
Yeah. So my books are available where all good books are sold. You can keep in touch with me through my Instagram, Georgia Lou Clark. I also have a monthly author newsletter called Heartbeat through Substack, where I share writing advice, publishing goss, lifestyle recommendations. Come and see a Generation Women show. We're every month at Joe's Pub. And for the aspiring novelists out there, check out My Novel Year, the year-long mentorships that I teach, so that you can write and sell a book of your own.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Georgia. This was so much fun.
My pleasure.
Yes. All right.
Remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, no genre shaming unless it's funny.
Bye.
Bye.